everybody. This is Jackie Luqman.
And I am Abdul Shahid, now known as Baba Luqman.
And welcome to the newest episode of Live and Coffee, Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation.
As always, the most dangerous, the most threatening, the most controversial show, and the most honest show on social media.
Okay, we're adding. All right.
Yeah,
we're growing. It's growth. So today is Sunday, July 12th, and we have a really good show planned for you. We've got a couple of really interesting news items that one thing I really want you to explain for people who probably heard about this development on the news, didn't really know what it meant. So I'm really excited to have you explain to people what are the upcoming news stories means. But before we get into any of that, we want to thank you all very much for being supporters of Luqman Nation. We appreciate all of you who are our patrons. We thank you very much for your support. All of you who have been followers and supporters and friends, y'all know who y'all are. Let me go over here to YouTube, see if I knew it. Lene is over there already. Lisa, we know that you are somewhere, Lisa. And you know, our Robert and you know, Uncle Brother and all the folks who have been, Meredith, all the folks who have been supporters of Luqman Nation from way back in the day. We really appreciate your support. We thank you so much.
Yeah, and you know, while we're while we're starting the show, well, I mean, we're just gonna be honest. We're gonna just talk plain because we're all family here. We need your help. And what do you say? Well, Baba Luqman, what you mean by we need your help? We need your help because Facebook is trying to shut us down. You know, they're messing with our algorithms. Jackie and I, we monitor, our numbers. We monitor, this thing, and Facebook is playing this game with us. They didn't want to boost certain posts of ours because they claim we owe them money. So we paid them the money, thanks to our patrons. So we paid them, because this is where the patron money goes. So we paid them, cleared up our bill and stuff, and guess what? We're still in the red. How is that? Now, see, the thing of it is the fact that we understand that, and the reason why we call ourselves the most, refer to ourselves as the most dangerous, most controversial, most honest show, is because that's what we try to, this is what we try to present. Now, we understand that not everybody wants that. And we also know that being a dangerous show, being a threatening show, is what it is. That a lot of people are threatened by the type of honesty and the type of information, the way that we analyze the information from a Pan-Africanist, socialist, radical perspective, that's threatening, especially to those who want to control the narrative. So they're playing with our numbers. And those of you who have been riding and dying with us for the longest time, we need you to start sharing our content. We need you to start sharing. We need you to start inviting folks. We need you to start holding watch parties. And it's serious because we don't come at y'all like this.
Exactly.
So we don't come at y'all like this, but we feel that we are in a time, man, when the gatekeepers or those who consider themselves the gatekeepers are trying to put a lock and key on this message. And on the message of liberation, on the message of revolution, and so we know that that those of you who are out there who have been supporting us through all this time, we know that you know how important it is for us to keep doing this work, and as well as others who are doing this work, and we can't allow. We can't allow them to pull the plug on us, because they're coming up with this stuff like, first of all, they came at us with the violating the Facebook.
We still can't invite people to like the page because we allegedly posted some stuff that people didn't like that violated some community standards. So.
And the community standards are always changing. See, that's the thing. Like they'll send us a questionnaire and said, they'll slap us on the wrist and threaten us with a Facebook jail and pulling our page and stuff. And then they got a nerve to come and say, well, have you learned your lesson? Just, if you learned your lesson, then just click confirm. And so we say, yeah, we heard what you said. And we click confirm and stuff. But that ain't good enough. Because now what happens is, now there's some other stuff. And there's some other stuff. So basically what it is that they eventually want to shut They basically want Facebook to not be utilized by people like us and others who are using this platform as a social media tool in order to effect change. That's what they don't want. They want us to go back to sharing the cat videos. They want us to go back to, and sharing. And if that's your thing, fine. No shade here. But at the same time, there's some of us who believe that cat videos aren't going to save this world. We are some of us who believe that, what you ate for lunch is not going to free anybody. You know what I mean? So what we're trying to say is that, this is where we're coming to you guys and asking you to support us in that area, man, and just start marshaling the troops, man, and and share this with people, because the revolution, we can't affect change, man. We can't keep this to ourselves.
Right.
So we can't affect change, man, by just, we're not doing this to be entertained. We have day jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, let's make that clear. We're not doing this to entertain anyone. We're doing this because we're passionate about what we do. We have day jobs. We stay up late at night, tired, trying to prepare for the show. We're middle-aged, and things are starting to break down. And so, so we do this because we have a passion. We want to see change. We want change not only for us while we're still here, but we want to see change, man, effective. We want a better nation.
Right.
We want a more perfect union. We're fighting for that more perfect union, and we're fighting for future generations. So we're not here to entertain, and we're not here to compete with others. All we do, Jackie and I stay in our lane. This is what we do.
Right.
We don't have the biggest following, which is okay. We don't have the most sophisticated sets. That's okay. We don't have a lot of the big celebrity endorsements. That's okay.
That's okay.
Because we didn't get into this for that. We got into this because we believed that there was a void out there. We knew it was a void out there, and we felt in our humble way that we were going to try to at least do our part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So that's my. That's my appeal.
That was a good appeal, and camera correction, a camera adjustment, courtesy of Brewski Luqman. So excuse me while I move the camera back to where it is supposed to be. We also have.
Trying to train him to be a camera guy,
but he's not working out really well.
We're going to have to kidnap that college student.
Lisa, I knew you were going to show up over there on Facebook. Yeah, you do need to invite some people who spec the truth. Yeah, look, before we're going to get into the news, and Chanel and George Bernard, we see y'all. Thanks so much for joining us. Here's what we don't have any more time to do, and I mean this in the figurative way, as in the black people, I'm fed up with your stuff kind of way, but also in the serious time as a construct of measuring whatever. We don't have time to keep going back and forth with people who have their own agendas and are really not interested in learning,
right,
not interested in listening, not interested in operating in a cooperative space, because we're not going to be able to survive whatever is coming unless we learn to cooperate with each other. And that we're talking about on an individual level. We're going to talk about that in the next show next week. God willing, the creek don't rise, but we're not. This whole individualistic ideology is not an African construct. That's not who we are as a people. It is very much an American construct. I think it's very much a European construct, to some degree. But that's not us, and that's not how we operate. What the Luqmans have been able to achieve, and we were just talking today about all the stuff that we individually, personally have been through, and we're sitting here marveling at where we are, where like every time my name gets called on Sputnik Radio, that's my job. We do it for a living. Every time they call my name on Sputnik Radio, every time Sean Blackman says, I'm Sean Blackman here with Jackie Luqman, my mind is blown because I did not know that this is where we would be, and I would not be here were it not for him. So our mind is blown that this is what we have been able to do. But we're not foolish enough to say to other people, well, all you have to do to get to where we are is do X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. Because everybody didn't have the circumstances we had.
Right.
Everybody didn't make the decisions that we did. Everybody wasn't put in the position to make the decisions that we made.
True.
You know, and everybody wasn't around the people that we ended up being around. So, you know, we're not those kinds of people who will look at what we have been blessed with and say, oh, well, everybody can do this.
Right.
We understand full well, and we talk about this all the time, do we not?
Yes, we do.
The fact that we're even married to each other, we believe that's a part of the plan for both of us.
Right.
To do exactly what we're doing. So, no, everybody can't do what we're doing because everybody wasn't put in the position to do these things. But that doesn't mean that there is nothing that you can do to be a part of this community and work collectively for a better society. But you can't do it if you ain't gonna listen to nobody. You think you know everything, and you can't learn, and you can't be taught. That's just for you, Lisa. That's just for you. So, top news, babe.
Yep,
What's the top news stories?
Well, one of the top news is that we told you so. Florida is setting the state of Florida, not Florida Evans, but the state of Florida. Florida has set a new record, a very grim record of COVID-19 infections, and it's really bad. I mean, I was watching Al Jazeera this afternoon, and they said that the new infection rates for Florida is so bad that if Florida was a country itself, it would be right behind the United States, Brazil, and India. Actually, it would be number 4.
Good grief.
Number 4, with the most highest COVID infections, if the state of Florida was its own country.
Ugh.
Now, the thing of it is that Florida was one of those states, as you know, that pushed that pushed this reopening thing. Even though the CDC, even though everybody that has medical training said that, hey, look, we can't open right now because, first of all, we haven't hit the curve. We haven't done the proper testing. We haven't protected the people. But no, it was all about the money. So, so now it was like, well, Disneyland is closed. We can't leave Disneyland closed. There's beaches, So everybody was looking at the economic. And Florida's not the only one. But let's look at the fact that 15,300 new cases of COVID-19. You know what that means? That means that a couple of weeks ago, that those people who had contracted the virus, because we know that the virus has an incubation period of about at least 2 weeks.
Right.
So these people were going around drinking, partying, gluttoning, and all this other kind of stuff.
Gluttoning?
Right, going to parties. And then, 4th of July weekend come and they on Miami Beach all bunched up together and shaking their ass and all this stuff. And then what happened was they're infecting people because they didn't show any symptoms yet. And, they thought everything was cool. This happened in Texas. This happened in Arizona. This happened in California. This is happening in a lot of these places where folks who feel that they're so exceptional that the virus also recognizes that they're exceptional. And so what happens is that they're going around affecting all these folks. Now the incubation period is up, and now the symptoms are coming, and find out now that California, Jackie, Arizona, Texas, all of these states, and mostly in the South, all of these states now are reporting these horrendous rates of infection by people of the COVID-19 infection. Now the problem is, we go to Texas, and I want our audience to remember that you heard this here first. We're going to pat ourselves on the back because you heard this here first. We said a couple of weeks ago, Jackie, that because of the hard-headedness of Americans, the stubbornness of Americans, the selfishness of Americans, the unwillingness to come together as a nation, to say, hey, look, we're in this together. We all like to talk about the greatest generation, World War II, and how they came together to defeat fascism and stuff. We haven't learned anything from it. You know why? Because we refuse to come together in order to protect ourselves and this nation from protect each other from this pandemic. So now what's happening is that Jackie, I was looking at the news today. Down in Texas, they're reporting that hospital beds are almost near capacity.
Yeah.
Arizona, Florida, almost near capacity. You know why? Because these are the states that didn't invest in healthcare anyway. These are the states that foolishly, when the so-called Obamacare was coming through, they stood up there talking about, we don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want it. So they did all of this political posturing in order to prove that they don't need nothing from the black president. And what happens is that the healthcare system in these states and in this country was already substandard. Now, when help was given by the federal government, the Republican governors talking about, no, we don't want it.
Right.
We don't this, that, and the other. So now, guess what? Now, the fact that because they didn't invest in their healthcare infrastructure, now look what's happening. Now, the system can't handle what's going on.
Right, exactly. And this just goes back to what you just said. This is, the states that refuse to participate in the Affordable Care Act only made a bad situation worse, right? Because the healthcare system, the entire healthcare system in this country, is woefully inadequate. It is based on, you get good care if you have a good job, if you have good money, and if you have a good job. And we can attest to that personally.
Yes, we can.
Personally, we've been on both sides of having good insurance and not having any insurance.
We had Obamacare too.
We had to have the ACA too. Listen, so this whole situation with the coronavirus has exposed. We say it all the time. We cannot say it enough. Has exposed just the evil nature of capitalism. Capitalism is not this magic bullet that is fabulous and fixes everything. Capitalism only fixes things for the rich. Capitalism creates a situation where there's actually, in this country right now, socialism for the 1%, because it was the 1% that got trillions and trillions of dollars from the Federal Reserve and the government. You've got billionaires getting the PPP loans. Billion people who didn't need it. I don't care what anybody says. Jay-Z did not need that damn money. He didn't need that money. Neither did Yeezy.
Right.
He didn't need that money either. He didn't need the money. Who was the
the Lakers?
The Lakers. They got some. Yep. The Catholic Church didn't need it. They got a PPP loan.
They might have needed it though.
Well, yeah, they have been paying out those losses.
Yeah, they paid out a lot of money over the last some years.
That's true.
Them coffers are deep, but they
a little bit more shallow now. But capitalism is the virus. Thank you, Victory Jen. You're right. Capitalism is the virus, and it's not that if we had a more socialized system, it's not that if we overthrow capitalism tomorrow, we're never going to have another pandemic. Absolutely not. We're going to have a lot more pandemics, because as a species, human beings have really painted ourselves in a corner. So we're just going to have to reap a lot of what we've sown.
Right.
And there's not a lot we can do about the effects of the things that we've done to the planet in pursuit of capitalism. That's another show. But what would happen if we were able to have a system that is socialism is what happens in countries like Venezuela and Cuba and China and all these other places, and Taiwan and Vietnam and all these other places where people are like, oh my God, it's such an authoritarian government. But nobody is about to be homeless. We're about to face an eviction crisis in this country because of this pandemic. and the lack of response from the government in making sure that people's needs are met during this pandemic. So, these states that are opening up again, and we live right next to Maryland. Maryland is opened up, and we love going to the gym, and we're sitting there looking at the Planet Fitness like, I want to, but I don't think so. They're doing it to make money. They're doing it to make money, and you and I know that they're willing to sacrifice you and us in order to make their money, because they made that quite clear. So these folks who are in Florida, these people and a few people have actually died saying that I thought this was a hoax.
Right.
I'm sorry for laughing, but for real, you thought it was a hoax when we were dying. That's not what it was. It's not that these people thought it was a hoax. They didn't care as long as it was us.
Well, and this is where you have to really look at who's guiding the ship here. When you got a bunch of buffoons who and I'm talking about the Trump administration and those who are sitting up there who using something as simple as protecting yourself with a mask as a political tool in order to divide the people even further. So now you got people saying, well, Trump's not wearing a mask. He gets tested all the time. You got me, and you got this, this idiot who is up there. He went from saying that it was just as bad as it's just a stronger version of the flu. He went from that to saying, oh, well, the virus will be out of here by April. Then he went to the fact that let's look at the de-evolution of Trump and this corona thing. Then he went from, oh, it's going to be out of here. We'll be opening up the economy back in May. Everything's great. Then he went from, you might just have to inject yourself with
you might just have to mainline some bleach.
Mainline some bleach. He's going up here lying, talking about all of these different
hydroxychloroquine is the cure.
And he takes it himself.
And then that started killing people.
And then the thing of it is that then that didn't work. Then he's attacking people. So now this is the thing. So because Florida is such a highly prized state when it comes to the presidential election, and Florida's being hit hard,
right?
There was a photo that popped up. Trump went to Walter Reed, and now remember the last time he went to Walter Reed? No, not him. Mike Pence.
Right.
He walked around with no mask on, and and all.
Right. That was at not Walter Reed,
but it was some army.
Yeah, it was another Mayo Clinic. It was the Mayo Clinic.
Okay. So you got Pence walking around, and they John Wayneing it all through the thing with no mask on and this and that and the other, and then and they caught some flack, but now Trump is walking around with a mask, something that he swore he wouldn't do.
Wouldn't do it.
But you know what it is? The thing of it is that Florida has a lot to do with him wearing that mask.
What you mean?
Well, because first of all, let's look at it this way. And the mainstream media reported it a little bit, but these 24 news cycle, most people have forgot about it. The fact that when the government was giving out all this aid for to fight coronavirus, Florida actually got twice of they got paid twice as opposed to other states.
Oh.
Now people raised some stink about this and said, well, how is it that Florida? Not only did they get federal assistance the first time, but they got federal assistance twice, and no other state did. Well, because Trump is playing politics, because Florida is a big electoral college state, and so this is the reason why he's throwing it on it now. Because let's look at it here. With all of these people, and he has a very strong support down in Florida. So with all of these people getting sick, he can't afford to be nonchalant about it now.
Oh.
What's happening is that these people are going to be like, man, we're dying down here, and you're still, because, people are finicky. And, people, so now he realizes that, and he's going to turn this. Trump is very, very savvy when it comes to optics, and he's very savvy when it comes to the manipulating at least people that supports him. So now he's going to be like, I'm with you now. You guys are dying at and you're getting sick and all. You went
to Disneyland and you died.
Right. So now I'm with you now. Look, I'm supporting you. Look, I got a mask, so I'm supporting you. So so even there's people around him, and this is where, all jokes aside, this is where we have to really see the implosion of this administration. Because see, now you got like a half a dozen states, and more is to come, where now you're having an even worsening crisis with this coronavirus than you had before, and you got people around him telling him, "You dumbass, look, you're gonna have to stop with this, because you know what, we're in a worsening crisis with this coronavirus, and guess whose feet is gonna be laid at."
Right.
So now all of a sudden, now he's walking around with a mask on.
Right.
See, because now those who are around him, this is what I believe. Those who are around him is saying, "Mr. President, you got to take this seriously, because you know what's going to happen? We already took a big economic hit when the virus first started. Now, states are starting to lock down again. This is going to be a second biggest hit, and this economic hit is going to be worse than the first one."
That's right.
Because the United States had already spent trillions and trillions of dollars just for the first half of this.
Right.
Now you're talking about that we got to go and lock the economy down again. Even the United States of America itself, with all the vast resources that this country has, that's going to take a hell of a toll.
And you know what is also going to happen when that happens? Because we don't believe that's an if. We don't believe that it's an if the states are going to go back on their reopenings. We do believe that a lot of these states are going to lock down again, because they're really not going to have any choice but to do it. And like we said, the police are going to get more repressive to white folks now, because they've been repressive to black people and Latinos. Right. And Chicanos, with the mask orders and the mask regulations and the social. We've seen that. Now the police they're going to start to get repressive in these Trump states and start arresting white people for not wearing masks and for not social distancing. And look, police repression is wrong. We oppose it wherever it happens. Let's just be clear that if ever there was a case of people bringing some stuff on themselves, I don't know what it's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Well, but you got to look at this, because the states have already started. Texas then started to rolling back some of its.
Yes, it has. Yeah.
Florida is doing it. California, the governor out in California is saying, "Look, we're going to have to start rolling back all of this reopening stuff." Now you got in the UK, Boris Johnson, who is openly calling for mandatory use of mask wearing. Not only in the UK, but even in places like Texas. The governor in Texas is saying, we're going to have to start making it mandatory that people. Now, how can you make in a country like this, who pride individual freedom, how are you going to make anything mandatory? You make it mandatory through force.
Exactly. And because we don't have that spirit of cooperation in this country, like we talked about earlier, we live in a country where rugged individualism is part of the gospel of this country's mythos. Then no, people didn't really care. There's some people, not us, because you didn't see, other than a few kids, because what kid doesn't think they will live forever? Right. I mean, goodness gracious, but. You didn't see a lot of people of color messing around with this, not wearing a mask business. But you saw a whole lot of white people doing it, because they really are indoctrinated with this idea that they get, everything they have is from the work of their own two hands, and they don't get help from anybody else, and they don't need help from anybody else. And the rest of us know that you just don't survive in any situation alone.
Well, but that's a very good distinction that you made between the two communities. It's true. the black community, Hispanic community, Native American community are being hit hard, percentage-wise, more than the white community is. But I like the distinction that you made. But it's for different reasons.
Right.
The reasons why black people are making up, and Hispanics and Native Americans are making such a high percentage of COVID infections and death is the fact that that we weren't given what was needed in order to deal with this virus. Right. So it wasn't that black people, Hispanics, and others were going around flaunting. Nobody was storming state capitals demanding reopening. Not from our communities. Right. Wasn't nobody sitting up there talking about, oh, you can't make me do this. I look. I'm sure there exists because there's always one out there. But show me the videos where you have black, Hispanic people or Chicano, Latinx people who are forcing their way into an establishment unmasked because they don't want to be told to wear a mask.
You can't keep me out of this Costco. Right. I'm going in there to get my, what do we like from Costco? Trail mix.
Right.
I'm a good without a mask. That's right. Not happening. We ain't doing that.
And the reason why is because we don't want to get shot. But the other thing is the fact that this is the reason why. The fact that healthcare is already poor in America, but it's even poorer where we live.
Right.
So these are the things that was contributing to the higher rates in our community. Because of the way that systemic racism has basically just disenfranchised us from a lot of the resources in this country. So I'm glad you made that distinction. But you heard it here, folks, Luqman Nation family. You heard it here. We said a month ago that because of the uncooperation of our fellow citizens is that what's going to happen is that this oppressive police state is going to, because see, one of the things that America gets serious about is when you mess with the money.
Oh yeah.
When you mess with the money. And they said, okay, we got this pandemic, and we didn't want to really we didn't really want to stop the money, which is the economy. We didn't really want to stop it. China did it, other people did it, but we didn't really want to stop the money. We was hoping upon hope that that somehow it wouldn't be that bad, that it would just be the blacks being killed off. But what happened is that when they found out it was affecting everybody, then they said, well, we got to shut the economy. States started shutting it down, and they shut it down on their own. This wasn't ordered by the federal government.
Right.
So these were states saying, look, we need to we need to be the adult in the room.
Right.
But this is another thing. Now it's talking about how bad it's been, so bad with the bungling response, and me and you already said we don't think it's bungling, but with the response that this country, this government gave towards this pandemic, and how costly it was, and in a lot of these states which wasn't getting the kind of help from the government, which forced them to reopen probably earlier than they want to, because they wasn't getting a lot of help from the federal government. Now what's happening is that now, because Corona hasn't went anywhere, what's happening now is like, well, we're going to have to lock the economy down again. And so see, what happens is that the real forces behind the people who are really behind the curtain controlling the wizard or whatever, however the analogy go. But what's happening is they're saying, look, we're tired of these rednecks. We're tired of all of these yahoos and everybody else, messing with the money. And so now what's happening is it's like, look, y'all gonna have to do something about that because it's messing with the money. And so what's gonna happen is that one of the things the United States is very, very serious about is when you mess with the money, and they don't give a damn who you are.
That's right.
So that's the reason why we said on Luqman Nation that you're going to see more repressive measures. We said on the show last week, and that's already starting to happen. The United States, not only do they don't want you to mess with the money, but see, they worse than Tony Soprano. They're going to find a way to tax your ass in order to be able to raise some funds. So what's going to happen is that they're going to be like, well, you know what? Yeah, okay. y'all all about individual freedom? Pay this damn fine then for not wearing a mask. Oh, it's all about we can't tell you nothing? Then pay this damn fine. And you're going to find that the state is, and nobody knows how to put the screws to you like the state.
Like the state.
And so what's going to happen
Trust us on this, y'all.
You're going to have videos. Look, y'all, follow y'all news feed. Follow y'all news feed for the next 6 weeks. You're going to have these same yahoos making live stream videos talking about they didn't know the police did this and that, and that this is not America. Look what's that. You're going to see these videos of these same folks who was just being brazen against something that could protect us all.
Yep.
Now they're going to become victims of the state, and then what's going to happen is now they're going to be like, oh, look how bad it is because look what they did to me.
Look what they did to me, and we're sitting over here. But yeah, so yeah, give it a week or two. Give it a week or two. When the next wave of
we're not even through the first wave. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But when we get the next wave of ridiculous numbers of positive COVID numbers, it's going to get bad. Not that we want it to get bad. We're just telling you that this is what we see about to happen. So, but we got to move on.
Yeah, we got to move on.
So, listen. This whole, have you seen the Atonement videos?
I've seen, I've glanced at a few of them. I've seen the one where the folks were washing, white folks were washing the feet of black pastors. I've seen the one where I think a white woman had a black man on her back, like kind of like the cross, and black folks in the back whipping her and stuff like that. Black man on the cross. Nah, I made that up. No such video exists. But they were really getting, and they were really getting quite silly, man. Because you had these atonement videos where, folks were just all of these gestures of let me you can have my wife, and all this other kind of stuff, and it's just crazy.
We're in a really ridiculous, and see, we're laughing because some of the things that are coming out of the liberal left, the liberal group of folks,
the professional liberals,
it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's window dressing. It's silly. It doesn't change anything, and some of it is actually pretty doggone dangerous. Like, there is this letter, just because this ties into this atonement piece. I think there's this letter that is posted in Harper's Magazine, the online edition. It will be published in the paper edition in October. But people are already on this thing, and they should already be on this thing, because, and we don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this letter, because we really want to talk about atonement and what it really means.
But it needed doing.
But apparently that's what the guy who wrote this letter thought that it needed doing. And this letter, I swear to God, did not need doing. It just didn't. So this person who wrote this letter, let me find out who wrote the letter, so I can be kind of coherent when I cuss him out. Thomas Chatterton.
Never
heard of him. Don't know who he is. Doesn't really matter. Okay, fine. And I'm sure it actually does matter.
I think he's one of the signatories down there. He's some academic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the very first, and of course I have more to say about this. Right. But look here. Any group of people, I don't care who it is, who wants to start a conversation about justice in open debate with marginalized people, and the first thing you gonna say is our cultural institutions.
Right.
Whose yours? Because they're not ours.
Right.
So this letter already begins from a very dishonest place. And you read it.
I read it, yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of you read the letter. I'm sure a lot of you had thoughts on the letter.
But this letter was endorsed by such people as Noam Chomsky and
people in the Noam Chomsky cult. You know what? We always talk about this. How we do have our favorite celebrities. Like we always call. And if he ever watches this, I hope he's not insulted. But we do. We always call Dr. Richard Wolff like our favorite Marxist uncle economist.
I'm sure he would love that.
But if Dr. Wolff ever said anything that we agreed with, it would not be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about anymore. We don't look at Dr. Wolff as somebody who can never say or do anything wrong. We agree with most of what he says, but he's human. So we're going to disagree on some things. So it just kind of blows my mind when all people needed to do was see Noam Chomsky's name as a signatory on this letter, and then all of the ridiculous garbage that's in it just went out the window.
Yeah, and all of the important examinations of what was being written went out the window. People didn't even want to study it now. People didn't even want to really examine what was actually being written because no Chomsky stamp,
Right.
He endorsed it, so it's good.
Yeah,
it's good.
And the letter, even if nobody signed on to the letter, and the people who signed on to the letter, they're problems themselves. Some of those people, because some of the people, the argument behind this letter is that people are fighting for justice, and that's a good thing. But the argument for justice has gotten so heated that the people who are fighting for justice are implementing this cancel culture, and it's making it hard for us academics to have an open debate about these issues. That's the gist of the letter. It's not very long. I encourage you to read it and come to your own conclusions. But here's the conclusion of Luqman Nation. We've been having this conversation about justice for our people, for black people, for Chicano people, for indigenous people, for gay people, for trans people, for disabled people. We've been having this conversation about justice for our people for centuries. How much more debate you want? There is nothing else to debate. Here's an example of why this conversation about open debate about justice is just absolute bullshit. When people were taking down statues in the first wave of folks finally figuring out how to do it right and get it done right. So people were all upset because people took down the statue of Ulysses S. Grant. And liberals, oh my God, okay, I can understand why they're taking down the statues of Confederates, but why would you take down the statue of Ulysses S. Grant? We need to talk about this. No, we don't need to talk about it, because you should know your history. But because these institutions that these liberals want to protect so much from the same scrutiny that the statues are getting, miseducated people on who Ulysses S. Grant was. These liberals don't know that Ulysses S. Grant was the one who ordered General Custer to kill the Indians. So people understood very well what they were doing when they snatched Ulysses S. Grant off his pedestal. We are making our demands for justice very clear and very intersectional and very multifaceted. Something that these institutions, and they name the institutions in here, the academic institutions, let me find it. Let me
journalists, artists, writers.
Right. Journalists, cultural institutions of higher education, journalism, theater, art, writers, journalists. These are cultural institutions that have locked our people out unless our people subscribe to a very specific kind of narrative that is whitewashed, watered down, and made very apolitical, so as not to offend the sensibilities of the very liberals who are now telling us that they feelings hurt because we done peeped their game and we are really not playing anymore. So at the end of the day, Noam Chomsky signing on to this letter, I give Chomsky his due. He's a brilliant man. I respect a lot of what he says. I've disagreed with him on other occasions. I disagree with him on this occasion. I'm not going to say he shouldn't have signed the letter because he's a grown-ass man. I can't tell him what to do. But I disagree with the letter. I think maybe in any other period of time, in another context, this letter might have made sense. But in the context it's written in now, in the time that it's written in now, and the people that it's written to now, it's just incredibly insulting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the first thing that was insulting to me is the fact that how the writer of the letter kind of in a roundabout way compared this outrage towards racist symbolism and stuff. Compared it almost to like a Nazi book burning,
right?
You know, the whole cancel culture and stuff. Now they were talking about how Trump labeled Black Lives Matter and protesters like Nazis and stuff. But see that's the difference between the right and the professional right and the professional left. They both say the same things. They just say it differently. Oh. You know, so what happens is that Trump said, "Oh well, Black Lives Matter is like a hate group and this and that and the other." But then the professional left says, well, Black Lives Matter, they just want to just stifle debate. And they, you know, and they want to stifle debate and they, you know, they don't have respect for the intellectualism that can be gained here by us not discussing the sins of our fathers, you know. So basically, you know, they're saying the same thing, it's just different. You know, and it's really sad because you have this. Well, let's look at it this way. There were some things in the letter that I didn't have a lot that I didn't have that I understood where they were coming from, and I understand the thing about intolerance, and I feel sometimes that in our zeal to really change things, that there is certain segments of the left. And I have to be careful about that when we say the left because it's a very broad stroke.
Right.
But there are some folks on the other side that's fighting this oppression and police brutality and all that has a tendency towards intolerance. So in that aspect, I agree. I think that there ought to be room for people to share ideas and to be able to have room for people who don't always want to lockstep that in the way that other folks want you to lockstep in. You know, because as we were told when we were growing up, there's many ways to skin a cat. But I think that what's dangerous here is the tendency of ivory tower white liberals to continue to confine our struggle to an intellectual exercise. As much as I admire Noam Chomsky, and I do, I do. But at the same time, what has he sacrificed for the cause? You know, now people might think that what I'm saying is sacrilegious, but I mean, here's a man who, as many times before, this is not taking away from what he means to those of us who want to see change. A man is intellectually brilliant, but so is Cornel West, so is a whole bunch of others. But the thing of it is that when you really look at it, you have these people who are sitting in their ivory towers, pining away, because this very same democracy that they claim they want to see is happening before their eyes, and they don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so now you're talking about democracy, which is ruled by the people, and I can understand that those same ivory tower intellectuals who were called the founding fathers, I think that this is the reason why they were so anti-democratic, why they set the system up in order to give them the advantage through the electoral college and stuff, because they really didn't trust the people, because they didn't know where the people would go. They, you know, if we really gave the people rule, we can't control that, so we don't know where they go. So we have to put some fail-safe measures in to make sure that we always maintain the advantage.
Exactly.
So if the common people, who we really despise, if the common people really got together and say, well, hey, we want this society to go this way, well, damn, what do we do? Because we did say that, you know, we want freedom and justice and all this stuff. Okay, I'll tell you what, just in case, you know, they don't go the way we want them to go, we'll have it rigged here, so at least we maintain some control. So, you know, and you're talking about even now, where all of these signatories and stuff who are coming under the guise of, oh wow, cancel culture. Well, how about if you really talk about the Constitution and this more perfect union? Well, how about a more perfect union is we don't want monuments to racists.
How about that?
We don't want monuments to people who owned other people. We don't. And why is it in the digital age that we don't know our history unless there's a statue there?
This is the thing that blows my mind, and I was so shocked at the people who I saw online who were like, oh my God, they took down Ulysses S. Grant statue. Like, y'all are on the internet. Y'all couldn't just look up how much of a garbage human being he was? Just because, and then we have the fact that we are so deeply indoctrinated by these very institutions that people believe that just because somebody fought for the Union Army that they were the good guy. So there's all these layers of misinformation and indoctrination and propaganda that we're getting from these cultural institutions that, again, are not ours, like this person said in this letter, that have led us to this point.
Well, that's my point. And I think my point is that the reason why we arrived to this point, you and I were talking about this before the show, the reason why we arrived to this point is really the result of a nation that wouldn't deal with its sins, with its past. Now, you have nations who have had similar histories like ours. You have South Africa, you have England, you have other societies that have had, they've had oppression of people in their history. But there's examples of them, of the reconciliation movement, hearings that happened in South Africa.
Right.
There were attempts in the Caribbean and other places in order to address these historic wrongs. The United States was the one that wanted to Earl Shive it and shellac over it and be like, we'll just put a panel up and just, call it a new room. Right. Ignoring all of the cracks and stuff that's behind the panel. So now, you can't really blame, they pining for this, and you can't blame the people because this was never dealt with. So now, white supremacy has basically, it's like a rubber band. It's stretched so much now that it's about to pop. And now you got these intellectuals who really, really, really have confined our struggle to their books, to their speeches, to their teaching, and I'm not discounting that. But what I'm saying is that what have they done? Which one of them put their bodies on the line? Which one of them? When you were talking about Bernie Sanders, at least said, "Hey, look, I got chained to a black woman in the civil rights struggle." But what has Chomsky sacrificed? Here's a guy who's in MIT. He's sitting there at MIT. He hates the country so much, but he won't leave. We were talking about true dissidents, and I'm not saying that he's not a true dissident, but when I think of dissidents, I think of W.B. Du Bois. And Du Bois.
Paul Robeson.
Right. I think of James Baldwin. I think of Nina Simone. I think of those who got so fed up when they found out that no matter what we did here, that this nation wasn't going to change. They actually left. That's a dissident. A dissident don't sit back and collect checks from their job, pay taxes, and sit here and live, and live under the same protection of a government and society that they always railing against. Now, I might be wrong for saying that, but what I'm saying is that to sit up there and look at my oppression or our oppression for 400 years, native oppression for at least that long, and others. And to pine away. You had intellectuals back then, and all they did was the same thing. Oh, let's look at this black situation. I mean, we used to be referred to as the black problem.
The black problem, exactly.
Right. So what it is now that we, the members of the oppressed, are saying to you that we don't want to be the topic of intellectual discussion anymore. That as all of the books that were published, all of the papers that were published, all of the
think pieces and articles and studies.
Not one of those things, no matter how famous Chomsky and all the others are, nothing that they said changed policy for us. They're not listened to by the people in power.
Right.
So the thing of it is that I can't stop and get mad because their feelings are hurt because I don't want this racist bastard statue to be there when my children come along, when my grandchildren come along.
Right.
So again, you're still talking about the same disdain from those who claim that they want a more free and open society, who has the same disdain when the people rise up to that challenge.
Right.
Now, and again, I'm not saying that I disagree with everything in the letter. I do think that that on the part of those who are, because I do think it's too much sometimes tone policing in the so-called left. I do think that there is some form of intolerance, but we can't reduce it down to I have to put up with this stuff so you can have something to debate and discuss.
Right, and I think that's where I just absolutely departed from. Just it makes no sense to me. We've been having this conversation every 10 years. People want to have a conversation about race, and every 10 years, black people, Chicano people, indigenous people, we're like, yo, we all talked out. We still dying. We still broke. What are you going to do? Can we stop talking? What are you going to do about these structural, systemic problems that we face? And then we get people in these positions, in these academic positions, in these journalistic positions, who not only respond by saying, well, you shouldn't be so angry. But then when we start demanding things that we want, that we know will be good for us, after decades and decades and decades and decades of being put off by the very same people from the very same institutions, or at least from the very same institutions, now these people are mad that we don't want to listen to them, so then they start condemning us as if we're the problem, and then they'll say, well, cancel culture isn't good for anyone. And this is coming from people, if you look at some of the people who signed this letter is coming from people who have gone on active campaigns to get people fired from their positions in some of these same institutions because they supported rights for Palestinians. Some of the people who signed this letter are Zionists, very pro-Israel, and are absolutely fine with governments in this country having loyalty oaths for state employees to sign them as a contingent of employment, that you are going to be an ally to Israel, or you can't have a job. Look at some of the people who signed this letter. So listen, over here in the comments, I have a lot of respect for Howard Zinn also. Howard Zinn was also an activist. Howard Zinn wrote A People's History of the United States from his own experience and his own knowledge, and he was also an activist. The issue is not whether or not people agree or disagree with Noam Chomsky or not. The issue is that Noam Chomsky's name on this letter, is enough for some people.
Well, it legitimizes it.
It legitimizes it, and it completely dismisses the valid arguments that people have with the problems in the letter. And when we set up a situation like that, these people talking about, oh, well, they don't like cancel culture. Just because somebody unfollows you on Twitter, it doesn't mean you cancel. You'll lose a paycheck.
Let me tell you something. For those of you who like the term cancel culture, nobody's culture has been more canceled than the Africans that you enslaved and brought them to your shore.
Come on now,
So look, so the African that comes here, who Jackie and I are the descendants of, don't know our original language, don't know where we came from. Even when we swab our DNA, even when we do our DNA, which they can now. I mean, we really, they can only trace it back to a region. You don't know the exact people. You don't know. So, I mean, we don't know what our original religion was. We don't know where our ancestors came from. I mean, exactly. We don't know what our names would have been exactly had we not been, had our ancestors not been enslaved and given the slave master's name. So please spare us with the cancel culture, because, everywhere that the colonizers went, they canceled the culture of the people that was there.
Thank you. Come on. And listen, this letter is actually quite important. I know some people don't think it's a big deal, but when you think about what we are demanding right now, we're not just demanding, I shouldn't say we're not just demanding justice. Justice is not just, I'm sorry. No, there is no justice without atonement. And as people of faith, let me be very clear, because there's a whole lot, and we're about to wrap this show up for you tonight, because there's a whole lot about the fight for justice that people do not want to believe is actually very tied into a whole lot of different faith traditions. But since we're Christians, we're going to talk very, very briefly about the Christian faith tradition. But first of all, let's be clear about what atonement is.
I have it here.
What is atonement?
According to the dictionary, atonement means reparation for a wrong or injury. Atonement is the concept of a person taking action to correct previous wrongdoing on their part, either through direct action to undo the consequences of this act, equivalent action to do good for others, or some other expression or feelings of remorse.
So this is not what we're about to show you is not atonement. This is not atonement. This is just one article that, you talked about one of these incidents before. Watch, white parishioners kneel before African American community to ask for forgiveness and pray for unity. Stick a pin in that right there. This is not atonement, y'all.
Right.
This is not atonement. Walking arm in arm with the cops is not atonement, or the cops walking arm in arm with you at the protest. That's not atonement. This right here, this ain't atonement. I can't even watch the rest of that. That makes me so angry that those people are standing there crying because these people are standing there kneeling and praying, and that's not atonement. That's not atonement. Because atonement includes actions. Atonement includes, yes, you admit the wrong that you have done, but atonement actually also includes actions, and there is no justice without both of those things.
That's true.
So when we have a situation where we've got people who are literally, quite literally, the gatekeepers of information and knowledge in this country, the higher institutions of higher education, journalists, the media, the arts, because please don't think that the arts is not also a way to control a narrative. All art is propaganda. If you don't believe me, actually read the history about Alexander Hamilton and then ask yourself why the Disney musical set to a hip-hop score is so damn popular right now. So we're talking about the gatekeepers of information crafting a narrative, saying to people who are in these streets demanding justice, basically, no, we just really want to keep debating. We want to keep debating about what it is you want. It's a good idea that these things should be embarked upon, but we think we need to talk about it some more. And at some point, like we said, after 400 or 500 years, ain't no more talking left. So what does it mean? What does atonement mean in this moment of justice? What we didn't see any of those people in any of those videos, any of those pictures that we just saw wasn't nobody kneeling with some checks in their hands. Wasn't nobody kneeling asking for somebody's mortgage or car note or student loan note saying, I will pay it off. Wasn't nobody, the cops wasn't marching with people saying, you know what, we're gonna cancel bail. No more bail. We're ending cash bail, and we are doing it. We don't care what the city council does. We're doing it. We are not going to. People get locked up for these offenses. Let's sit down. This is what we can talk about. These are the offenses that we're gonna stop demanding bail for. We're gonna write people a ticket, and y'all go on about your business, and we'll see you in court. Well, those things aren't being done. And that is absolutely counter to what justice actually looks like, especially coming from a faith tradition. And it's really important in the context of those folks who were praying, because those white people who were praying, they know doggone well that the Exodus story about how the Hebrews left Egypt, not what Moses did and what God did, whether you believe it or not, it's really irrelevant whether you believe it or not. That's not the point. The point is, there is a part of the Exodus story that every Christian knows.
Well, before we go into that, I think one of the reasons why I have a problem with all of this silly displays, I have to just call it like I see it, all of these silly displays of so-called conciliatory behavior. The cop, walking with the black woman down this, and what we just witnessed with the the white Christian group praying and all this other kind of stuff. We've been here before. In our history, we've been here before. We've been here. Like I said, nobody was more about it than John Brown. We've been here before. We've been here before where there was a segment of white Americans who, in one form or fact, the abolitionist movement, all of this stuff. We've been here before. The problem of it is that reason why I don't trust it so much. Or I won't say trusted. I believe that they're sincere. But the reason why I don't put much stock in it is because the whole nation is suffering now, because we're in a perfect storm of suffering. We have the COVID, we have bad economic times and stuff, and this allows people to be a little bit more self-reflective. What happens, man, when the good times start rolling again?
Right, exactly.
And so we've been here before. We've been here before during the Depression, when there was a lot of poor white Americans and black Americans and others who seen their common lot and was like, wow, But then came came World War II, and then came the economic booms, and then came the suburbs, which we couldn't go to. Then came the GI Bill, which we couldn't take advantage of. Then came all this other stuff, and those same folks that was like, hey, I understand that, we're all in the same boat. Then all of a sudden, I'm moving to the suburbs. Sucks to be you. So these kind of things, this emotionalism has never been, emotionalism very rarely turns into anything substantive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it rarely turns into anything that equals policy,
right,
or equals something that can really affect the quality of life of somebody. So now these people get up from praying in front of black people, and they go home and they feel good about themselves. Oh, we was able to bow down at the feet of black people, and you know, and we feel good, you know. But nobody's lobbying the congressman in order, you know, to get to your point. It's the same way with the cop walking with the black woman hand thing. He goes back home feeling good about himself because, you know, oh, I embraced a black woman, and for that moment I understand that we can be pigs sometime, and you know, and I might have even acted like a pig towards a couple black people, and I'm sorry for that. You know, and I embraced this black woman because at least for that moment I feel the pain. After all, man, they're humans, you know, so I feel the pain. But then what happens when you get that next call, and that next person is a black person?
Right.
So, you know, how you going to react then? You know, so, or what's going to happen when you're back at the police department and you know, the fund of the police thing comes along.
Right.
You know, what do you think about that? So, you know, so we have a right to be cynical about these displays, because the thing of it is you can't be and like I tell you folks, man, this is, you know, we try to be honest. You can't be you can't be all sad and want me to accept all your forgiveness something, but you don't want to share nothing.
Ooh.
See, that's the thing. You don't want to share nothing. You know, I mean, the wealth gap, man, come on. You know, the evidence is out there. The wealth gap, man, it would take us 200 and some years to even close the wealth gap with most white people.
Yep.
I mean, the evidence is out there, man, that the average white household has like $100,000 compared to $5 to white people. And we ain't talking about just money. Social capital. The fact that a lot of white folks, and I ain't talking about your poor uncle or nothing like that, we're talking about on average.
Right.
So we're talking about to the fact where, you know, a lot of European Americans can pick up the phone and make certain calls, or even in the poorest areas, you know, I know somebody that that can help you out here. Right. You know, a lot of those connections that we don't have. So so when we start talking about these things and stuff, it's like, you know, it's not about you walking away feeling good about yourself and be like, okay, well, I did my duty today. I asked a black person to forgive me. No, but you can't, you know, you can't just, that is the first step. It's like anything else. It's like if you have a drug alcohol problem, everybody say the first step is admit it. What they did was the first step. You admitted that, yeah, this country has been horrible to us, and, you know, and that there is a need to recognize that there's a problem and an issue. That's the first step. The problem is in America that most of the folks leave it there.
And for 500 years.
Right.
Well, not even that long, for as long as they've been physically able to fix their lips to say that something was done wrong, but they're not, they haven't been specific.
Right. And I'm just going to make this point real quick. When the whole Bernie Sanders thing, this is the reason why we can't really, this is why we're really, really hesitant about embracing all this emotionalism, because when it came down to the hard knuckle drag out fights of politics, and all of the black people looking at Bernie Sanders as a savior and all this stuff, and then when it came down to our issues, reparations, then, you know, then it was like, well, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. Reparations how? I don't believe everybody should get a check. And it's like, because the times were good.
Right.
See, that's the thing. See, there was no corona. There was no this. There was no that. So now it's like, okay, so you don't know what that means. And, you know, you're running around here, you know, and I'm not just picking on Bernie, but I'm saying this whole white liberal thing of, you know, yeah, we agree that, you know, the noose, you know, the yoke is around your neck a little too much, but we're gonna loosen it up a little bit at a time. So you know, so the thing of it is, so what does reparation mean? When you see the evidence about the wealth gap and all of that, and all of the negative effects of that on our community, Corona exposed it. Right. So Corona exposed it, like these people are dying at a higher rate because your ancestors did not do the right thing then. and they continue not to do the right thing. And now we're getting to the Bernie Sanders and the government today, and y'all still won't do the right thing because most of y'all who claimed you was on our side was against monetary reparations.
I mean, there's some really COVID will not do a lot to close the wealth gap. It just will not. Black people who were paid less and had higher unemployment than white people already are still unemployed more than white people and are still paid less. We're not making any more money. And trust me, white people cannot make less money to the point where they have as little as we do. That's not how this is going to work. Justice for black and Chicano and indigenous people has to include reparative justice. That's not something that people don't know what that means. And honestly, we cannot use COVID as an excuse. We really can't. Because, like we said, the 1% got all their money. They got all their money and they still getting all their money. So we have no shortage of resources. Justice means atoning for what you've done, admitting and asking for forgiveness for the wrongs you've done, but it also means paying. It also and it means that in every faith tradition. Mm-hmm. All these Christians running around talking about they praying for unity. We don't need you to pray for unity. What we need you to do is advocate for reparations, because these very people, they understand very well that the Egyptians or the Hebrews, when they left Egypt, they didn't leave empty-handed. And you know why they didn't leave empty-handed? Because God told them to tell the Egyptians, when they let you go, after 400 years of enslavement, to give you from the wealth that they took from you. That's in the Bible. That's in the book. And these folks who are out there praying with these people, talking about, oh Lord, we're here to atone, oh please, we're praying for unity. It's all window dressing, because they will not go the next step that they know is required out of their own faith tradition. They know this, and that's not the only place in the Bible that exists. In the Old Testament, all over the place, if you steal an oxen and you get caught, you got to pay back too. If whatever you steal, you have to pay it back, plus whatever you profited off of. All these are faith principles that these people who are doing this, I'm a Christian and I believe in unity and justice, but they're not advocating for people getting any resources. They're not changing the way they vote as far as policies are concerned. All that stuff is worthless. It's performative. It means nothing. Exactly like you said, it makes them feel good. It might make some of y'all feel good. Oh, maybe they're not so bad, but we're here to tell you it changes not a damn thing for us.
I will feel a lot more better about all of this symbolism when the good times roll again, and let's see how folks act then.
Yeah. So anyway, listen, we thank y'all very much for watching this evening. We had a great show. We hope you really enjoyed the show. We definitely do not want COVID or any other virus to make everybody poor. We want justice. Justice and revenge, two completely different things. This country is lucky that revenge is not what we want, and that we are truly seeking justice for our people. So let's work on that, and let's work on that for real. And we got to do that we got to start with the truth. We have to start with the truth in order to do that. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate your support. Congratulations to Howie Hawkins and Jackie Walker, I think, for the Green Party candidates, the president and vice presidential candidates for the Green Party, hoping to get an interview scheduled pretty soon to talk to those folks. Pretty excited about that. And listen, as always, support us on Patreon. If you are able to, we really appreciate your support. $3, $5, $7 or more if you can swing it. But if you cannot, share our content. Share our content so we can beat Facebook's evil algorithm. Invite your friends to our streams. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. And as always, folks, be really, really good to each other. And peace. If you're willing to fight for it. Because now we are going to have to. It's time for dinner. Gotta roll. Bye.